Today I'm talking with Sonia, Cisse, tech, cybersecurity, privacy, e-commerce and fintech partner at Linklaters. AI is like now, just like you say, it's shifting the mentality of literally everybody.
Everybody is actually acknowledging that things are evolving, and we just want to make sure that we're doing it in the right way. I really think that there is a shift in the legal profession at the moment, and it's regardless of the size of the firm. We should stop worrying too much and focus on what they will bring to the table and what new skills they're going to bring. All comes down to training. Because if you tell people what are the risks, first they need to understand what the risks are when you use, I don't know, any random tool. We train our people. We tell them, no, you cannot put client name within the tool without checking. You need to double check your facts. You need you need to make sure that there is data security, data accuracy, and everything comes down to AI literacy. Because the more you understand about generative AI, the best way you'll be able to use it. It's like driving a car. You need to know the rules, you need to know how to turn on the light, you need to understand traffic lights, etc. It's the same with generative AI. What I can tell you is just like we will still need juniors. I think that maybe we should not exclude the fact that those juniors that will be on the market in a few years or so will be very different from the type of junior I was. They will have different skills. Generative AI will be part of it. So the junior role might evolve in the same time as the technology, but I don't see it disappearing. I had this conversation like last weekend. I was at a legal conference in London, and a junior associate told me like, wow, it's becoming very competitive. It's very hard to get a training contract, etc. She was explaining that to me. And I told her, okay, but you just need to focus on new skills, and generative AI is one of those skills. And she was quite surprised. I think she was specialized in phone, or no, in pension or something, in pension. And she was like, yeah, I didn't think of that.
What?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, oh, come on. So I told her, I don't know, I'm not an expert in the UK legal system and the UK recruitment process, etc. But go to your next interview, and say, look, I'm very, very good with generative AI. I understand how the tool works. I understand the risk, and on top of everything else you have to offer, and I'm pretty sure it's going to make a difference. So we are worrying at the moment on having generative AI replacing juniors, when at least when we focus only on tasks that didn't have any added value. What we need to focus on is generative AI and juniors, and how we're going to train them, because obviously tasks that didn't have any much added value were part also of our training. I get that. But I think they're just going to be different and train on different things and have different way of thinking that we did not have at least when we were in their shoes.
If a paralegal or even a law student was to come to me and say, what do I do? I would say right now, your focus should be on learning how to leverage AI in the legal sector, because that is going to be a competitive advantage in a very competitive market of junior lawyers. Well, I mean, in a few years' time, I don't know, but right now, law firms and lawyers there's so much information, they're so confused, and the massive advantage would be to know how to use AI for sure.
Absolutely. I agree. I think out of the box. Think about lawyer and data science and lawyer and AI engineer, etc. There will be new jobs. We don't even think about that right now, but there will not just be maybe what we call, there will be, I don't know, what we think as an AI lawyer today would be something very different in 10 years. So we never know. I think there's a land of opportunities ahead of us. I think in 5 years, we will see even better tools than what we are using now, and more advanced. And like I said, with maybe new type of lawyers, like lawyer/data scientists, maybe that also university will start, creating those new type of courses, of curriculums, less rigid and a little bit more flexible in the sense, or maybe AI will be everywhere. So you will have mandatory generative AI courses in whatever career you're following. That could be interesting as well. AI and psychology, or we might need that. People are starting to talk to ChatGPT more than they talk to their friends.
Each week, I take what I'm hearing in conversations with legal leaders. I analyse the market and track emerging trends in this AI era. In my newsletter called The Future Lawyer, Market Intel for the AI Era, I'm focused on what AI is exposing, the opportunities, the blind spots, and the shifts shaping the next 5 years. This is how you see the chessboard before everyone else does. In this conversation, I'm speaking with David Mazur, Vice President, General Counsel and Compliance Officer for Research and Development at Nestlé.
Traditional way of working is you would start with a template, you would start customizing the template to your needs or to the specific situation. And I think with AI, really, some of those, let's say, more standard adaptations to the template, like in my case, IP allocations and so on, they can be done much more quicker, and actually you can spend more time on thinking, hey, what's the right strategy here? What's the right deal to be struck? So you're thinking as a lawyer, I would say, to put it a bit graphically, kind of you need to think a level higher. And corporate lawyers are of course spending a lot of time doing legal work, legal advice, but we also spend time, for example, communicating with our stakeholders, influencing our stakeholders. Today, there's a lot of very practical Gen AI tools for generating educational videos, for generating nice little snippets you can put on your intranet. And this is not necessarily the kind of things that lawyers like to spend time on, nor typically are very good at, to make it very visually appealing. And those are things which are really quick wins that can help everybody work faster. So it's really, so kind of linking back to the question, we need to avoid missing those opportunities, let's say, on the periphery of our jobs. What is so democratic about it is that you can start doing it immediately, like it's almost instantly. If you have already some AI tools available, maybe you need to convince your IT department to acquire some licenses, and you can come up with some new idea and make it happen almost immediately. Yeah, you don't need to ask permission of anyone. You don't need to ask your manager. And I really love when I can see ideas come to life that I haven't even been involved in or haven't even seen, because it's just great to see that creativity.
You're talking about kind of creating this culture of curiosity and innovation and thinking outside the box and experimentation as well. I think all those things are really, really important. And I think lawyers need to become more kind of like scientists in a science lab, experimenting and seeing what works. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't work. I think lawyers are so usually, they're known for being perfectionists, a lot of them. And this is why this AI coming into the mix is kind of like, it's a contradiction. It's a juxtaposition. Oh, experimenting, but we want to be perfect, and it's hard to kind of get the mindsets around that, I guess.
There's this perfection mindset, and also maybe, and that's another topic I think it's worth talking about, kind of feeling that you're in a safe space as well, that you can experiment in a safe space. So there's, I think, a leadership responsibility there to make sure that people feel safe to try out new things. Now, Copilot has this notebooks function, which is a bit like Notebook LM from Google, where you can basically create a context with a limited set of documents internally. So you reduce the risk of any hallucinations because it uses a specific context. And then you can actually leverage the AI within also a safe digital space that is not just taking everything out there, but really your specific set of documents. So think about a litigation, for example. If you're working inside the frame of a litigation, you could actually upload your documents into, again, provided you're working with a service provider that has a confidential instance for you. You can upload those documents into that notebook and then start actually looking through the AI lens through those documents, maybe having it as a kind of thinking partner as you work your way through that litigation, and therefore opening up new avenues in your strategy, in your litigation strategy, or maybe certain elements that you've overlooked, another pair of eyes looking at it. The reality is that I think it's not easy to control that, but then see actually how quickly can some of these tools then be transferred into an official solution that is appropriate, and knowing that it's never risk-free. Even a compliance assessment and risk assessment is always going to be a risk assessment. It's never going to be 100% guaranteed. Competitiveness also comes from taking calculated risks. I think, like you say, as lawyers, we need to take not a purely operational view on that, like does it meet all of these requirements? Does it meet our compliance requirements and so on? But take a strategic view on it, taking a strategic view on it and I think that's what our profession brings uniquely, with an understanding of the evolving regulatory landscape, as I mentioned earlier, EU AI Act, and then also seeing, okay, where can I guide the business to say this is actually something you can do, this is something we could actually help assess legally and actually make ourselves comfortable that this is something we're comfortable with, while providing guardrails on the protection side, like, hey, this is, and even there, I think sometimes we have to go beyond as well the kind of legal question. It's what is purely legally allowable, but also what could be, ethically held against a company or against a law firm. It's really thinking together strategically with the business or with clients.
Today, I'm sitting down with Alexandre Verrien. He used to be the legal director of France. for Dell Technologies, and now he works for himself as a legal executive.
In the case of a strong negotiation with a very difficult customer, and we all had difficult customers in our lives, you cannot really replace human judgment. You cannot really replace the experience of a lawyer who has been doing this for 10, 15, 20 years. AI is not sitting close to you, next to you, AI is worst case scenario on your computer, but you are facing someone and you are sharing points, sometimes red lines, sometimes points which you don't agree with the counterpart. That's just a human being. That's just two persons around the table. And AI is not part of that discussion. AI is a tool. If you're not drafting, complex agreements with two counterparts, if you're not necessarily discussing for hours a liability clause and so on, where I think that the human judgment is way more important because you understand the rationale behind a pushback. You understand that. And I had the case, I do recall a very, very specific case where I had someone in front of me being very hard with me, very tough, and just pushing back on everything. And I discovered that he had a situation with our competitor at that point of time when he was stuck into the contract. There were no way, to just exit the contract, just get some kind of indemnification for some stuff. Considering that when you are using AI, I think that some teams and some people are missing one key principle, which is the human in the loop. You have to double check the results of your AI. ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, or even though, legal specialized AI tools, you have to double check. So if you are running a law firm or if you are running a law department and you are, just working on 200 cases through an AI tool, you have to double check. So at least there are some human interaction. If we consider also that I'm pretty sure that you are familiar with the GIGO concept, garbage in, garbage out, that means that also you need to have legally trained people, working, because if you are prompting in a bad way, if you are not giving the exhaustive, information, you won't get the proper result you are trying to achieve. So you need to have human at some point, for sure. Before, after, and sometimes in the middle, because you have to prompt again, you have to give additional information, you have to give additional context. We will transform the organization. We will transform the way we work through processes, through technology. So there will be still lawyers and there will be new roles, new skills. AI is for sure a skill, and everything around AI is kind of skills, because again, when you are using that kind of tool, you also need to have clean data. So you have to have someone working on the data, because if you have a mess of data, terabytes of data, which are not organized, which are not clean, when you have maybe 3 final versions of a Word document and you have 2 PDF versions, one is signed, the other one is initialized, and both are called final, you have to clean that first. So you will have someone just working on the data, because it's one of the biggest thing within a company, and legal teams are the one having, I would say, the memory of the company most of the time. So yeah, you will have, from my point of view, something around 50% of lawyers and something around less than 50% being legal X role. When I'm speaking with people, I'm always going back to the very famous acronym PPT, which stands for People, Process, and Technology. Again, I think that technology is good, and I've been in the IT world for many, many years, so I won't be, just saying, okay, tech is not good. I'm part of the legal tech, and my world, I'm part of the tech world, so for sure, tech is good. But if you are adding a tool on something which is not working, you just create a chaos, and that won't be working better. You need to first start with your people, your organization. Do you have the right people? Do you have the right skills? Is everyone is in the right place? But if you are just buying a tool, and if you are just doing AI just to shine in dinners, no interest at all, because you are just putting something on something which is messy. So it won't be solving anything. It will be just adding mess on mess. And then mess on mess is just chaos. And it won't be working at all, clearly. So first, people, second, process, and third, tools. The tool needs to make their life easier. If it's adding any kind of complexity, that's not good. Adoption rate will be close to 0, and you will be spending $100K, euros for nothing, because nobody will use the tool. and everyone will be complaining about, okay, we have not been part of the decision, we have not been part of the change management, we have not been part of the AI strategy.
In this episode, I'm talking with Peter Boyce, one of the legal deputy directors in the civil service and AI lead for his agency. I'm also talking with Amy Cronin, senior director of legal at Skyscanner.
I think there's also a responsibility angle here on the legal profession to make sure that actually kind of the sustainability of the legal profession, those tasks which we might just write off as automation, sort of the disclosure, some of the early prep work in a litigation case, those are the things that we learnt as paralegals, as trainees. So kind of where's that skill set going to be in the future? And obviously kind of there's lots of great things that lawyers will always add, the grounds of critical thinking, the soft skills, the strategy, the advocacy.
It's the critical thinking, I think, is going to become a key skill in the age of AI. And I think if you are missing out on those core early tasks, there's a potential of not understanding kind of how you're analyzing the outputs. There's something fundamental missing there. I mean, presumably they'll invent some AI that will do that task, but I feel like that there is a core skill set of kind of going through the ranks, that junior level of work. That is the high volume work, that is the boring work. But if somebody isn't doing that, where are they learning those skills? And I think that is quite concerning for the profession, actually. I think there's not going to be an option to be kind of a technology adopted lawyer. I mean, it's going to be it'll be a basic of the job that you'll be familiar with these tools and that you'll be able to operate them. And also that you'll understand the fundamentals of like how LLMs operate, how AI works, the more kind of technical fundamentals of it. I think we'll all have to really upskill on that so that we can have those proper conversations with vendors, that we know what we're buying, that we're able to build stuff, because we will be given the tools to build. I mean, we have the tools to almost build these things ourselves. So we'll be really leaning into that and carving that time out, I think. And hopefully, we will get more time because we'll be able to do, outsource a lot of the kind of boring day-to-day stuff to AI. So we've actually implemented that in our team. We've given everybody kind of a couple of hours every week that's blocked out of diaries, and that everyone is allowed to and expected to during that time to spend time researching, reading, trying new tools, and that's kind of sacred time. And then we share with each other. We have sessions where we kind of share some kind of tips with each other of what we've learned, or get people in from the business to train us up on something interesting that we've heard about. So I think that's going to be a big area. I think recruiting is going to look really different. What our teams look like. There's not going to be this constant, okay, I have a need, I'm going to hire a new person. I think it's going to be, I have a need, first of all, justify that it can't be done via tooling. And as we talked about, the lawyers coming through the system, the junior lawyers are going to look very different. I think we're going to be hiring for that more technical skill set, kind of prompt engineers, legal engineers, rather than trainee solicitors.
I don't know whether a few years ago, kind of remember, there was a kind of a big play for people to go out and be experts in coding. There was loads of sort of coding courses. I remember kind of in those dark days in COVID, and I thought maybe I should kind of do a coding course while everyone else was going off learning Spanish and Italian and everything. Whereas actually now you really don't need to be a coder to be able to create agents. There was a really good quote from someone recently where they said actually the current state of AI, it's actually democratizes digital developments, because actually it's becoming so user friendly now. It's understanding your own work and then seeing actually how it could apply rather than being a real techie. So actually there's a good incentive to be able to use the tools that we've got already. And I think there's also a bit of grey areas to liability. So not actually recognizing that actually, yes, if something goes wrong, it's not somebody else's fault. Actually, if you're the organization who's deploying it, you are liable for it. It's kind of, it doesn't absolve you of those responsibilities. So again, that's kind of, it's a really part of the education piece. And I think if you completely put your head in the sand and go, look, this is just not going to change anything that I do, I think you will get found out. I think you will need to skill up, have a different mindset, and be prepared for the change that's coming. And I think if you are all those things, you can thrive.